Where were you when you saw this thing?
It has been a crazy 24 to 48 hours. It started with Trump, then moved to JD Vance. They both kind of like teamed up on me. But transparently, I had just had a long day after the No Kings protest here in Manhattan. And I was at home just kind of reflecting on it all, going through the news, anything I missed throughout the day. And I get a message from a friend and they're like, is this you in this video? And I'm like, no, I mean, it's a link to Trump's Truth Social page. It's probably not me, maybe somebody that looks like me. And then I clicked on it, and then what do you know? The president is flying a jet in an AI video with a crown on his head, dropping feces on me and millions of other Americans. So I was just kind of like sitting at home, not really doing much.
And what was your immediate reaction?
It was disbelief. I don't even know. I couldn't process what I was looking at. I was like, this cannot be real. This is something that I imagine I'd see in my Twitter comments. There are a lot of right-wing trolls who spend their days making videos like this. That I understand because that's just what they do. But coming from the president of the United States, I was in disbelief. I was depressed at the state of our country, that this is something that I and we as a collective have to deal with. And I'm still kind of in disbelief. And I'm really not disappointed and also not shocked at all these elected Republicans today who are, defending this. Mike Johnson said that Donald Trump is one of the best users of social media there's ever been. And I don't know if that's how he defines it, then power to him. It's very strange.
Well, you're quite a good user of social media yourself. And so I would think that this might be the best thing that could have happened to you.
I made a video last night talking about this in particular. I've gotten a lot of messages from people who are concerned for me, asking me, am I safe? Am I nervous about the increased attention, especially from a quite delusional president and a freakishly weird vice president? And I said, I'm better than ever, not because Trump is giving me attention or anything like that, but because I think he's proving my point. He's proving my point about him. He's proving our point about him, that he's childish. He's only interested in like internet beef with people. And he's not a serious legislator. He doesn't actually care about making this country better. He just likes getting into feuds. And so I welcome Donald Trump attacking me because he's just proving me right.
Well, and you're obviously getting under his skin, and clearly he and the vice president know exactly who you are. So for those who haven't been following it as myopically as I have, will you explain to them how JD Vance came to join the conversation?
It was pretty stunning. I had responded to Donald Trump's video in a couple of different tweets. One of the main posts I put out was just a simple request for journalists who may have access to Donald Trump. I just want a reporter to ask Trump why he posted this. And I still don't think anybody has. I'm still waiting for that to be fulfilled. But, why did Trump post an AI video dropping feces on me and other Americans? And I said, that would be great. Thanks. And JD Vance took it upon himself to reply to my tweet and say, well, I'll ask him for you, Harry. And JD Vance has yet to give me an update on that either.
Well, it must mean that the two of them are both following you, right? Which is a good thing, because you are very provocative in your use of social media, which is the point of it, right? I mean, you've taken a lesson. Perhaps you knew how to do it anyway. You're a digital native. But certainly Donald Trump has become incredibly successful and good at provoking people with social media. How do you think the Democrats are doing in terms of keeping attention themselves, or indeed drawing attention to themselves, if you assume that one of the great talents of Donald Trump is holding attention?
It is unfortunately one of his great talents. And I think that the Democrats have gotten a lot better since the conclusion of the 2024 election. I think that was kind of a wake-up call for Democrats to realize that there is a lot of untapped potential in social media. I mean, I'm even experiencing myself. I've had far more elected officials actually reach out and are interested in working together or just meeting together just to have a conversation about what we can do better, as opposed to before the 2024 election. And since then, I've noticed a lot of Democrats now have like a dedicated film crew or a dedicated team in their office for them to film content and really get the message out there and make it succinct and concise, and not throwing a bunch of numbers at people that are overwhelming, but easy messages for, your average American to digest who just got home from work and is just scrolling on social media. So I'm really impressed. There's obviously still a lot of work to do. This is something Republicans and infrastructure they've been building for much longer than we have, but I'm confident we are in the process of catching up and will eventually overcome them in the social media battle. I mean, Trump being at the helm and everything he does, it's so crazy. It's not exactly, I would say, a successful individual as opposed to the Democrats, who I think are communicating much better.
Okay, so it's hard not to think. I mean, was such a. If we think of presidents as being people that uphold certain values and people that we want to look up to, it's hard to think how Donald Trump plays into that, flying a plane and unloading. And you've used the word feces, which is one of those words that I feel like people are only ever using when they're trying to avoid the word shit. And what he does is he flies across Times Square, which is full of people marching on the No Kings Parade, and then he unloads a ton of shit and it hits you first. So Michelle Obama famously said that when they go low, we go high. How does one use social media without going as low as them? Because I think of, you think of someone like Governor Newsom, who's doing a very good job getting attention, but a lot of his stuff also seems a bit puerile.
I think there are some really successful examples of Democrats doing this that have captivated people. I think Zohran Mamdani is an amazing example of this. His video ideas, his content is creative. It's has a lot of eyeballs on it. It makes you want to watch more and learn more about who he is as a candidate. It's one of the main reasons as to why he was so successful in the mayor's race and will be the next mayor of New York City, presumably, as the Democratic nominee. So I think he is a great example. We don't actually have to be like Trump. We don't actually have to go as low as he does and demonize people and use the kind of rhetoric he does and type in all caps. We can have a successful social media strategy that doesn't include the factors of Donald Trump. But I also appreciate Gavin Newsom because there's some humor there. There's some satire there that's mocking him, not necessarily saying, this is what we want to represent us. So I agree. I think Michelle Obama's quote is fantastic. I think that sometimes we do have to go and meet them where they're at, but we are not them. We have to remember that.
So are we looking at a new class of politician who basically has to be a political creator to get anywhere? I mean, because one thinks about Donald Trump, he was a television producer. He knows how to produce content. And in a sense, that's what his presidency is. And you're right about Zohran Mamdani. He may well be elected as next mayor of New York, but he's absolutely brilliant on social media. It's incredibly watchable. You want to watch more of it. And it's lively. And it's exactly what social media is actually designed for: provocative, lively, engaging. So do we have, I'm going back to my original question because, sorry, that was a bit of a loopy question. But do you think that politicians from now on are going to have to be political creators?
I think they'll have to have a creative mind, or if they don't have the mind to do it, if they're not coming from that background, which is perfectly fine. There are lawyers and doctors and those folks who run for office and they don't have to be content creators. If they don't have that kind of brain, then hire a team that does. And, there's like an entire new job out there, which is kind of being a social media director for a lot of these candidates, these elected officials. And when they get it right, it's really, really well done. I mean, you don't have to be a President Obama level speaker, that charismatic, to have a successful social media strategy. And, different races require different approaches. So if you have like a congressional race in the middle of Pennsylvania where people are focused on rising costs, I don't expect somebody to necessarily run a Zohran Mamdani kind of campaign, but you can still reach people with that social media presence.
Well, how do you do that? I mean, I imagine that almost every Democratic, certainly governor and senator in the country now is thinking, how do I hire Harry Sisson? If you're talking about a congressional campaign where you are worrying about the price of milk or the price of gas or whatever, what would be an effective way to tackle that on social media? How do you talk to people?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously different campaigns require different strategies, but if we're just using Zohran as like the best example in recent history of this, I love the videos when he would go into bodegas in New York City and talk to these business owners and say, how much is X, Y, and Z? How much has this gone up by since you started your business or even last year? Getting real people on camera telling their stories is inspiring. And I think it opens up a lot of people to the realities of somebody else's life and the realities of the place they live in and the solutions as to which that politician is providing. And so I think something like that can be really effective. But again, it really depends on the race. You're not going to have the Zohran Mamdani approach to necessarily a presidential campaign, for example.
So if you were one of the Democratic governors at the moment thinking that you might be getting ready to throw your hat in the race for the president 2028. How would you be thinking of building out your social media campaign now? Because assuming it takes a bit of time to get you on the radar with people.
Yeah, I mean, well, you just kind of at the end there touched on, I think, the most important thing for candidates right now, which is just simply getting on people's radar. I think Gavin Newsom has done a really, really good job of that. You see in the 2028 polls in the Democratic Party, he has surged to the top in recent weeks and months simply because of his social media approach, but also his pushback to Donald Trump. And so if I were advising a candidate right now and not giving necessarily a specific video idea, I would say right now is the time to just get eyeballs on you. We can talk about specific policy later and like certain videos on certain policies and things like that. But right now, I would advise getting eyeballs on you and also just pushing back on Donald Trump. People are really hungry for an authentic approach that pushes back on the madness we're all seeing. I think everybody wakes up every morning and they're just wondering how this is the reality that we live in. So I think those two main things is how I'd advise them. But then after 2026, I think it changes a little bit.